Hi, welcome to Fight or Flight Productions. Today we are doing something a little different. Since we are such avid fans of Halloween, we decided to do 31 days of horror films. I'm Monica, and the dancing skeleton right there.
I'm Noel, with my treats bag.
Yes, with his happy Halloween treats bags.
Which I love so much I'm never going to use it.
So what we're going to do one video a week for the whole month of October. That's going to give you 7 films for each day. And these are films that are either just our personal favorite Halloween movies or gems that we think you should watch. So for the first 7, we will start with Noel. What's your first recommendation?
My theme this week is 1972 films, which I didn't plan, but it just came out that way.
Yeah, that was me too.
I like these all equally. So my first choice is Raw Meat, which is also known as Death Wine, and it's from 1972. It's a British movie of a very depressed and depressing London, post-swinging 60s London, and it's with Donald Pleasance and some other actors who are far less well-known. It's about strange stuff going on in the underground, in what the Brits call the tube system, the subway system. Mm-hmm. And it's creepy and it's atmospheric, and then it ends up being very tragic and kind of moving at the end, but very strange. The tone is weird, and the director does some amazing things with the camera. There's some shots of traveling through the tunnels of London that are just extraordinary, that go on for a really long time. And even though the film is that old, you wonder, how did he accomplish some of the stuff he did, or how did the cinematographer do some of what he did? But basically, it's an unfinished tube station. It's like they're going into a part of the station that had either been bombed during World War II, or is being rebuilt, or is being and of course, scary, painful, spooky things always happen when you go digging into something that's been buried.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
It's moody and it's spooky, and Donald Pleasance is actually really funny in this film, so I would highly recommend it.
You actually mentioned something that's actually one of the reasons why I love horror so much. Is a lot of horror, especially when you go into like ghost stories, kind of tap into a emotional element that you don't get in other movies. And so I think that's kind of one of the cores why I like horror movies, is you get certain emotions and certain feelings and certain perspectives that you don't usually get in like rom-coms or action movies or stuff like that.
Definitely. I mean,
they really deal with like psyche and emotion way more than other movies.
The interesting thing about this one, though, is it doesn't really get into anything supernatural. It almost becomes socialist realism in a strange way, in a spooky and creepy way. I guess you could tweak Raw Meat or Deathline and almost make it more of a socialist, realist, not political, but more of a drama. But definitely they're moving towards horror, and they're moving towards spooky. And I guess I shouldn't have given away that there's nothing supernatural, because there could be. But it doesn't matter either way, because it is creepy and upsetting. And like you said, it pushes some buttons that I think still to this day can upset a viewer in an interesting way.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
dated
cool.
And also not dated.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so my first movie, my unintended theme actually ended up being the 80s, and more specifically, unlikely heroes in the 80s.
Ooh.
So my first movie that I adore, and I didn't see it when I was a kid. I actually missed out on that one. I watched it probably like 8 years ago. A friend of mine flipped out because it's kind of a Goonies-esque movie, and they're like, you love the Goonies and you haven't seen this horror film? It's called Monster Squad.
Oh, I've heard of it, but I still haven't seen it.
It's super adorable, super in the vein of the Goonies, where it's just like a bunch of kids, and basically all the classic hero monsters, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, all wake up and attack this city for certain reasons, and of course it's like a 10-year-old kid and his friends that have to fight them. And like the greatest quote in the movie to me is, they're fighting the Wolfman and a kid kicks him between the legs and he like crunches over and they're like, Wolfman has nards! But it's just adorable, lighthearted, fun. And ever since then, I have added it to my repertoire of movies I must watch every October. It's so cute.
Well, I was an unsung hero in the 80s. I'm a lot older than you. So I felt like watching that would just be redundant. You know?
You're like, I'm living the life, man.
That's
I don't need
right.
to see.
And Wolfmen sometimes don't have nards if they've been, of course, thick.
Or if they're lady wolfmen.
That's true. That's a good
Alright, so what's your next one?
And even if it was a lady wolfman, it would still hurt if she got kicked in the crotch.
Yeah, that does. People always act like it's still, you're getting kicked, regardless.
My next one is from 1972, surprise. It's called A Reflection of Fear, and I only recently watched this. This is some crazy poop. Am I allowed to say 4-letter words? I mean,
I don't know. It's kind of a lot for us.
I didn't mean poop. I meant what poop's standing in.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Reflection of Fear is one of these strange, again, a very atmospheric, spooky, family, psychotic family drama. There seemed to be a lot of spooky, atmospheric, psychotic family dramas in the early 70s. This is not the horror of Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing, even though that came a little later, right? This is the horror of like, I don't know what it would be. It's like Freudian. There's a lot of incest. Okay. The incest stuff is probably the most upsetting stuff, or the implications of incest. And there's some creepy gender stuff. None of it adds up or makes much sense, but it's so well done that it really is gripping. And you don't know. It's one of these things where you're not sure if there's anything supernatural going on. It ultimately ends up being offensive at the end, but that's okay. This is a case where the film is directed by a cinematographer, so he rightly and intelligently hired the best cinematographer working as his own cinematographer, which is Laszlo Kovacs, who's one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. So it's kind of a genre movie, but he got the top cinematographer of the time to do it. So again, similarly to Deathline, you've got these incredible shots that go on and on and on, but there's the visual storytelling, because you've got two cinematographers working together, the director and the cinematographer, that the visual storytelling is superb. It's like Hitchcock level, and the camera's doing things that you've never seen before, and the colors, the lighting, the use of space. I mean, there's still a lot to be learned from this film, just on a purely technical level. The acting is strange. Robert Shaw is really good, very handsome back in the old days before he became Captain Ahab in Jaws. Sally Kellerman, pre-Hot Lips Houlihan, is quite lovely, and this is Sally Kellerman doing a very toned down, kind of really naturalistic performance in a very not naturalistic film. So she's really great, but I think everything after this, or at least post-MASH, she's pretty much bat poop insane in all of her performances. So it's an interesting view into some very different. And then the lead actress, whose name I can't remember, who's real life, she's supposed to be a young girl, and she's too old for the role, and she's pale and emaciated and white with these giant eyes. She's well known from the 70s. But they dubbed her voice, and I don't know if they dubbed her voice but the same actress did it because of some sound problems, or if they have a different actress doing it. It's annoying, but it kind of adds to the weirdness of the film. It's really, but she married or became the longtime companion of this actress who plays the young daughter, the central role, became the partner of Clint Eastwood. And I have to say, The true horror is what Clint Eastwood did to this woman over the course of their relationship. So go to Wikipedia if you want the really ugly stuff. But the film is fascinating, and I highly recommend it if you're one of those people who doesn't need necessarily a clear or coherent story, but is more interested in sort of mood, atmosphere, and
yeah. Sometimes those are good. Not always, but sometimes.
I think it's worth the watch.
Especially, you were talking about like amazing cinematography, and I'm trying to remember this movie that me and Crystal watched, and I think it was called Bless the Children. It was an older, like, black and white movie, and we just got it because we used to go to these. Crystal and I used to be roommates, and we would just go online and try to find horror films because we're both horror fanatics. And this website just kind of spit an entire article on this one movie, and I'm pretty sure it was called Bless the Children, but I'm not finding it online.
Bless?
It was like, it was an old, like, black and white movie. I keep getting these, like, orphanage organization web pages and stuff when I'm looking that up. But
Christian.
And it was the most beautiful movie we have ever seen in our lives to this day. It was, every shot was a work of art, and it was so just awe-inspiring to look at this old black and white movie that was like super slow, but every shot looked like a painting. It was gorgeous, and it was this like the Others type horror film with like the spooky ghosts and all that stuff, and it was just probably one of the most amazing films I've ever seen, and now I can't find it.
Isn't it weird? You don't think of horror films as being beautiful, and then there's all these strange, obscure, at least obscure to the average horror fan, that turn out to be these visual masterpieces. It's really makes digging into horror, digging around the edges of what's known in the horror film genre, really satisfying, really rewarding.
Well, we even reviewed one on our movie reviews called Strange Color of Your Body Tears, which I absolutely hated that movie. I thought it was the worst movie I've ever seen, but at the same time, it's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. It was absolutely gorgeous. So I think for that one I rated it a 5 because I was so torn. Like, the story I hated more than anything in my life, but the movie was gorgeous. Okay. Sorry, moving on. We're doing pretty good on time, though. I'm surprised. We usually ramble a lot.
We're just a little.
Just a little teensy bit. So for my next one, again with the unlikely hero, this one has cheerleaders ending up being the heroes of the day, and it's called Night of the Comet.
Oh, yes. Classic.
I freaking love this movie. It's so funny, and it's like, I mean, if you ever want to see a good movie with cheerleaders with Uzis, that's the movie to watch. And me and Crystal, like, even for Halloween one year, we kept joking about, because there's this part where it's like, it's a movie where there's the apocalypse, and basically everyone evaporates into dust, or they're okay, or they turn into zombies, which doesn't really make sense, like, why some people were okay, some people turn into zombies, and some completely evaporated.
Well, that's for just about every zombie film. Not every, but...
We joke every Halloween party we go to now is to bring, an extra set of all of our clothes, and when we leave the party, just put a bag of sand and our clothes there and be like, that's the rest of our Halloween costume, you guys! Like, the Night of the Comet. Because when they first wake up from the apocalypse, there's just bags of sand and clothes. And we're like, yep, that's how we're going to leave every Halloween party from now on. But it's
to be appreciated by horror aficionados only, right? An inside joke costume.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty specific
reference.
Probably we would be the only ones at the party that got it, but it would be the most hilarious thing, like, ever to us, and we just laugh for years to come about it.
You haven't done it yet.
No, we keep talking about it, but since we've seen the movie together, we actually haven't been to a Halloween party together, because since then we've been, like, living in different cities and stuff like that. One of these days we'll do it. We just have to go to the same Halloween party again. But, it's a fabulous movie, just ridiculous cheerleaders. I mean, of course, they've got the one more serious one and the one klutzy, dumb one, but it's still a must-see. If you love, like, if you love the 80s and you love horror, why haven't you watched that movie?
Lived it. Would you consider it a feminist film? Ahead of its time in terms of gender politics?
I guess considering everything in the 80s, yeah, but it's still kind of a bad image for women. Like the cheerleader, dumb blonde. Even though they do, like, kick total butt, they're still the really ditzy image of women. Like, I guess, it's, cause there are intelligent women in the movie, the scientists that apparently created the apocalypse, but if you watch the movie, they, like, go completely crazy and try to kill everyone for the name of this scientist, and it's not a good image for intelligent women.
Yeah, but it's, considering the situation they're in, it sounds like they're making the right choice for the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it a feminist movie, because I don't know. I feel like the message of that film is like the dumb blondes will survive and the intelligent women will just go crazy.
Oh, interesting. Some straight.
So I don't know if that's a good.
Would think that's heaven. You do.
I don't know if that's a good message for women, but it's a good message for like dumb women. They're like, oh, I have a chance.
So I'm not going to say you and Crystal are dumb women, but you do like the movie anyway.
We do enjoy catering to our what we wish was our feminine side. We love movies like Clueless and stuff like that, and we pretend that we are those type of women, even though we totally aren't. I guess it's like every what is the phrase? Like every princess wants to be a prostitute, and every prostitute wants to be a princess.
I didn't say it. I don't think I've ever even heard that.
I think I heard it from Tales from the Crypt, actually,
Well,
which isn't a good source of information, but
not a good lifestyle, model. But
this is where I get all my information from.
No, I know. I didn't want to say anything. It's been really clear.
I could write like a book, the things I learned from TV.
So it's a great film, and I would that's a double recommendation.
Yeah. Oh, I love Night of the Comet so much. All right, so your next one.
My third is another film from 1972, and it's called You'll Like My Mother. And,
oh yeah, I forgot all yours were like 1972 specific.
It wasn't intended. It just sort of, I guess when I'm thinking about, you said think of something campy and maybe a little silly, but also films that I feel like should be paid, more attention should be paid to them. But this is the same thing, same kind of look and same kind of feel, spooky. Well, no, spooky's not quite right, because this one veers into psychological thriller, but it's still got some good horror elements to it. The most horrifying thing, of course, is that it stars Patty Duke. Her identical cousin doesn't appear, but she plays a very pregnant, I think you're too young for that reference. She plays a very pregnant woman whose husband has died. I think he was in the military. I guess this is it a Vietnam reference? I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen it. She goes to her dead husband's home, and the dead husband's always told her, you'll like my mother, you'll really like my mother. And when Patty Duke, she is huge pregnant, when she knocks on the door and the mother of her dead husband opens the door, what is the first thing she said? Oh, I was just drowning some kittens. And Patty Duke does not blink an eye. And yeah, come on in, let's have if I would have
right.
Okay, wait, I'm going to the SPC, I'll be right back. No, but Patty Duke stays because she wants to work out issues regarding, she wants to meet the husband's family. She had never met them. So
well, obviously, if I was the husband.
Next time, bring your own kittens.
Yeah.
It would have gone a lot better. No, it's really interesting, and it goes into some really sick stuff. But the real great thing about this film is John Boy from the Waltons, Richard Thomas, gets to play, I'm just going to say it, spoiler, he gets to play a psychopath, and it is really spectacular. He's very underrated as an actor, and it's great to see him. I'm not even sure
Yeah,
this
I like
this
him.
might be pre-Waltons. He's really young. So just for his performance, I would say watch it. But it's got some great stuff. It's got some really sick stuff. Another sick family kind of thing, like Reflection of Fear. So that's another sub-theme of the week.
Reflection of Fear.
No, the sick family thing. The
Oh
really
yeah.
demented, really.
So 70s sick families and 80s unlikely heroes.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, nice.
You can go back and forth. So the 70s one will depress you, but the 80s ones will lift your spirits.
Rise up.
Dumb cheerleaders.
You mentioned John Boy. I remember when I was a kid too, because my grandma used to watch the Waltons a lot, so I ended up watching that a lot. And when I was a kid, it really like freaked me out to see him in It.
Wait,
I was
what?
in It.
Oh, he's in It too. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it would always, like, when I would watch the Waltons, like, because I was really young, I couldn't really, like, differentiate the two. And I'm just, like, watching the Waltons, like, all disturbed, and my grandma could never figure out why. And I'm like,
Maybe you saw You'll Like My Mother on TV and didn't even realize it. Because it's really great. What was I going to say? And Patty Duke gives a good performance. She's not ridiculous yet, even though she's as big as a house. I think all three of these films are available on YouTube, so I don't even think you need to pay any money for them. I'm pretty sure. You're checking to see?
No, I was just looking it up on IMDb, You'll Like My Mother, because I want to watch that one.
Yeah, it's really good. Oh, and the actress who plays the sick mother who likes to drown cats is really quite good, too. It's high 70s. Oh, and, I should say in all three of these films, I think there was a trend in the 70s for everyone's hair to look like a wig, even if it's not a wig.
Yeah!
I mean, it is really prominent in all three of these films. So,
I think it's something with, like, that Aquanet that they use, because my grandma's hair always looked like a wig, too, even though it wasn't.
You can't really tell, is that a bad wig, or is that bad hair that's meant to look like a bad wig? It's really interesting. I mean, all three of these films are deep, deep, deep into synthetics and nylon and really repellent fabrics that people, the clothing that people wear. So there's a lot of Vaseline on the lenses, a lot of that kind of spooky, weird night gallery, cinematography.
Yeah.
So if you want to go into kind of that realm, all three of these movies will get you there.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I like the really weird, twisted family movies. They strike a note with me on some level.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the two family ones in this, both a lot of implied incest. So that's, I don't know, another thing going on in the 70s that really seemed to be on people's minds. And relegated to horror movies, right?
I think a lot of it had to do in the 60s and 70s. We mentioned this before. They were more focused on, like, the monster that lived right beside you, and because all the occult stuff was coming into view with, like, the music being played backwards and all that stuff, and just the twisted perversions of your next door neighbors.
That's right. That's so
being
funny.
a horror.
Yeah. And
so, like, incest and all that stuff was making a big rise because it was the topic of the time.
Well, it was the thing going on next door in your own house that nobody wanted to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's like we were talking about with Targets, about, the sickest person is the blonde, handsome, bland one.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the person who wrote Reflection of Fear, can't remember his name, also wrote Targets. So definitely all this stuff is connected, I think. I think he wrote Targets? He collaborated with, what's his name on Targets? Bogdanovich? Anyway, he also wrote Seconds, which is another one of my favorites. But that doesn't fit into this week's choices.
All right. Well, that was good. All right, so then my last one is actually one of my top 5 movies, period. And this is a movie that I don't just watch every Halloween. I watch it regularly. Even, you can ask Kinda and Crystal, even at my birthday parties, I'm like, I'm going to subject you guys to this movie again while we play board games or whatever. Ghostbusters.
Oh, well, yeah.
One of my absolute favorite movies since I was a child. I love this film. And the thing that I love most about it is I'm really big into, like, fairy tales and, like, folklore and parables and stuff like that. And this kind of, it almost bashes fairy tales. Because fairy tales always have the ancient relic weapon, or the person who was an ancestor of the great divines, or like Harry Potter, you know, when you were a child, you absorbed all this magic from some greater being, which made you the special chosen warrior. Whereas Ghostbusters is, you answer an ad in the newspaper, and now you're fighting ghosts and gods. So it's just that anybody can fight a monster. Anybody, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're smart, that's great. You can create the equipment. If you're not smart, that's great. Someone can train you how to use the equipment to take down Gozer, the great god. And I don't know, I think, and I sent you guys a link to that Bob Kirkman video.
Amazing. His analysis of Ghostbusters is incredible. He hit it like right on the head. I'm like, yes, this is why I love this movie. Right.
Yeah, and it speaks true to children when they watch it too, because they see all these fairy tales and all this stuff that's like, oh, you have to be like the ancient warrior ancestor or something like that, and they're like, oh, that's great, you know, my mom and dad are from Wisconsin. Stuff like that. So they don't get that association, but with movies like Ghostbusters, it's kind of like anybody can do this. Yes, there is a monster in your closet, and yes, you, the plain Jane, can fight it.
Well, not just that, but Bob's whole thing is it's science. Science.
Yeah, science versus mythos.
You don't have to be a genius. Of course, now it's all about tech wizardry. But in this movie, you don't have to be a tech genius or to be able to create something that's based in science to defeat these sort of old school. You know.
It actually makes Winston probably like the most powerful character in that movie, because he isn't the scientist. He isn't the person that's dedicated his life to research on this. He is just a guy who answered a newspaper ad that wanted a job.
Yeah. So Bob, you'll put that link to Bob's review.
Yeah, I will.
On our website, because it's not only what he has to say is fantastic and so smart. And it's not only his editing is really good of the film to go along with what he's saying, but his delivery, he packs so much information in such a small amount of time. He's got a great voice, and his delivery is just perfect. It sounds like it's been worked on for weeks. It's so perfectly executed. So
he puts so much time, time and consideration. He's the one I keep talking about that comes up with like theories and philosophies on movies that I never would have thought of, and I'm like, oh my god, that makes me love or hate this movie so much more.
Right. I mean, definitely he made me appreciate Ghostbusters a lot more. That it's got a lot more going on than it seems on the surface.
Yeah. So that's actually, I mean, I have a top 5 movies, and number 1 is Amelie, 2 is Fight Club, and 3 is Ghostbusters.
That's an interesting threesome. But you can't get any better than Ghostbusters for Halloween unsung hero of the 80s.
Yeah.
That movie covers all.
They wrap it up.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do number 7, and number 7 is like a wild card. You had suggested I do something really serious, but what I'm actually gonna do is do something really experimental. There's a handful in the history of horror films. There are a handful of highly experimental, non-narrative, really wild experiments. Now, some people could say that if you go back as far as Vampir and even Nosferatu, you're dealing with, very stylized silent films, high expressionism. But these are really experimental, or this one is really experimental in that there's not really a story. You kind of have to put it together. It's black and white. It's no sound. Oh, no, wait. It's no spoken dialogue. There's an incredible, amazing, totally ahead of its time soundtrack going through the whole thing that doesn't match up with the images you're seeing. And it's from 1970, so it's off by 2 years, but still. And it's called Cuadecuc Vampir. I think I'm pronouncing it right, and I think it's a Spanish word. But let me spell it: Cuadecuc, 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 Cuadecuc,
Cuad what?
Cuadecuc. It means like something like poison tail or something. It almost seems like an Aztec word. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like Quetzalcoatl or one
Right,
of those.
exactly. But there's no
Christopher Lee.
There's no monster called that in it, so don't. It's not a monster feature. Cuadecuc, and then there's a comma, and then vampire is spelled Vampir without the e, and it's an obscure one. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube as well. Now the version I have is just a little over an hour, but the version on YouTube seems longer, and some people might even not get 5 minutes into it. But it is basically what happened is the director Portabella of the Mushroom Family fame. He basically was on the set while Jesus Franco was filming Count Dracula with Christopher Lee. And what this film is, he films the filming of Count Dracula, and he mixes together like footage of the actors acting in front of the cameras and the actors goofing off when the cameras are off. So like Christopher Lee's like he's sucking some girl's blood, and then you assume that cut was yelled and they start laughing, or they start or they go off and eat a sandwich.
That reminds me of, I'm trying to look up the name of this movie, and I can't remember it, and I think it has Willem Dafoe, but it's like a...
Shadow of a Vampire, right.
Yeah, the Nosferatu movie, like, that's really good.
If you took Shadow of a Vampire and, like, took all the text out, or made it a silent film in black and white, a really beautiful, blurry black and white, and chopped it all up, and put a weird soundtrack, you're definitely close, and you're in the realm. But of course, this is as the film is actually getting made. So you get to see Christopher Lee sort of hanging out, and all these beautiful late 60s, early 70s young women hanging out. And then you see outside shots. And what starts to happen eventually is you're not sure what's being shot by the actual film crew and what isn't. Like, you can't tell what's off stage and on stage, so to speak, or on camera or off camera. And then at the very end, you hear spoken text, and I won't give it away, but there is this kind of wonderful conclusion to this whole kind of, it's very psychedelic in black and white. So if you wanted chemical stimulants, you could, it would probably add to it, but you don't need it. Of course, ideally, it would be seen on a big screen and, with surround sound, but definitely something to turn the lights out, put all the distractions away, turn your phone off, and just kind of go with it, because it is really trippy. And I wouldn't say it's scary, but it's definitely about horror. I mean, it's definitely a film about a horror film. So whether you consider that a horror film or not, but I think your parallel with Shadow of the Vampire is right on. Shadow of the Vampire would be the narrative, coherent story version of this.
Yeah, I love Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah, it's really great.
That up.
So
I'm trying to see if it's like on Amazon or Netflix, or maybe even YouTube. I want to watch
it. It's on YouTube. It's definitely on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really awesome.
And the only spoken language is in English, so you don't need to worry about subtitles or anything like that, even though it's an Italian filmmaker, Mexican. I'm sorry, that's going to sound really ignorant and racist. There's two directors involved, and they're not American. That's what I'm trying to say. They're not from an English-speaking place. But the final, reveal, or the final episode is in English, and wonderfully so, cool. Because Christopher Lee, and it's Christopher Lee reading as Christopher Lee, and similar to what we talked about in Targets, you get to see an old horror master, or one of the classic horror actors, just sort of do his own thing, and how
I love Christopher Lee.
Yeah, how good he can be in non-horror stuff, or playing something else besides Dracula.
He's one of those people that I could just have talk to me for hours and be happy. I'm like, just you can just read an instruction manual and I will be happy.
That's kind of what he does. He kind of reads it, and it's so beautiful. So, so That would be my wild card number 7.
That's
I think,
awesome.
I'm not sure Sunday is the right day. Well, maybe so. Maybe Sunday afternoon when you're a little drowsy. That might be.
Just a lazy day.
Yeah, if you fall asleep during it, I think that's okay. I think it's meant to be experienced sort of. You're just meant to go with it and just.
In that half dream state.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Better than I could have ever said. So
That's
our
cool.
7, right?
Yeah, that's our 7. All right, so we didn't do too bad. It's like 30 minutes. That's pretty good for us. So,
We'll have these on the website, right?
yeah, I'm gonna upload these October 1st, so you can start watching October 1st, and then on the 7th we will have another one, so you can watch one horror film a day for whole 31 days of October.
But I mean, can we make we'll write the list down and maybe even have links to the YouTube on the
Yeah,
webpage?
absolutely.
Is that
That's
okay?
a good idea.
So
Yeah,
that
that's a
people
good
don't
idea.
have to go back and listen to us yammer again.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Or should we read them out now?
I think I wrote them all down.
Okay.
So we had Reflection of Fear, Raw Meat or Deathline, You Will Like My Mother,
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, Night of the Comet, Monster Squad, and Cuadecuc.
I think that's
Vampir.
that's how it's spelled, so I assume
Yeah. Alright, but that's a good idea. I will put links to whatever medium I can find that you can watch them online, be it YouTube or Amazon or Netflix. That's actually a really good idea. Awesome. So we will see all of you guys on the YouTubes in a week for the next week's recommendations.
And we'll have different themes. We're not gonna.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna continue to find horror movies from 1972 to recommend.
Yes, as I was coming up with these, I'm like, oh, here's a selection of vampire movies. Here's a selection of witches movies. Like, I'm like, hey, we can make themes.
So we'll have different. Each of us will have different themes next week.
Yeah. That's cool.
Sounds good. Thanks
All
all
right.
for listening.
Yeah, we will see you guys again in a week.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.